Well, hello, party people. Welcome to NRW. I'm your host here today, Rob Noviga, and I thank you very much for joining me here today because today I am very excited for a review that I'm going to be doing here for you for a wonderful film that no one went to go see in theaters, and I seem like I was the only one that actually went to the theaters to watch this movie here when it came out back in August of 1995 here, and I'm talking about the movie Angus here. So before I get into my thoughts for this review here, let's roll the trailer here real quick.
I'm swallowing snot, you know? It doesn't taste that gross.
From the producer of Cool Runnings
Stop!
comes a story about fitting in
She's definitely a babe.
Talk to her.
Wherever she's popular.
or not.
Let me go! Let me go!
It's a little joke, okay? Watch my butt.
I'm watching it right now. I get the worst pain in my stomach whenever I see her.
I think I know what Rick did with your underwear. Your underwear is almost as big as the flag.
This year's Winter Ball Queen will be Melissa Lefevre.
And this year's Winter Ball King is Angus Bethune.
I can't dance. I can't talk to girls.
You're Angus, right?
And I know you set it up,
And this is the chance you've wanted your whole life, right?
but I can smash Rick Sanford's face in.
Got a temper, save it for the football field.
I'm not going.
You get to dance with Melissa Lefevre. I'd sell body parts for a chance like that.
You don't have to know how to dance to sweep a girl off her feet. Use what you have in here.
We're gonna turn you from a large, pathetic virgin into a large, pathetic virgin with a new look. This is Wanda.
And she is your date?
She's yours.
Is this a bad time?
When Angus dances with Melissa, she's never gonna look back. Go for it, Angus.
I think it's alright that I do what I like, but that's the way I wanna live.
Angus.
Girls want guys who are dangerous, have tattoos, play the guitar. Stick with me. I know these things.
And there you have it, the trailer of Angus here. This was a trailer that I saw, I believe, back in theaters for another film that I happened to, while I was watching at the time, and I don't remember what that movie was here. But I remember seeing this trailer specifically and thinking, I gotta watch this movie here. And again, this is '95 when the film had come out, so I was 10 years old at that time. And I remember just feeling a connection with that story there, and I went to go see it in theaters, and I don't remember the events that led up to me watching the movie and who I saw it with. I'm pretty sure I saw it by myself, if I'm not mistaken here, but I do remember specifically thinking, why am I the only one here? Because it seemed like I was the only kid there, because there were, I think, 3 or 4 other people there, and I just remember like thinking, like, why is no one watching this movie? Because this movie's so incredible, it's so good, and it's so well acted. I remember thinking that as a kid, just like how pure that story was. And I certainly connected with the character of Angus here, played by first-time actor Charles Talbert. His story is a wonderful story. If you come across some videos here, he'll tell you how he was discovered. And basically, to put it in a nutshell, he was at a Wendy's and he was telling some jokes, and his personality caught the attention of the director of this film here. And he went up to him and said, "Hey, do you want to be in a movie?" And he was like, "What?" And then later on, he ended up getting the part of the film, and he's working with legendary actors such as Kathy Bates, George C. Scott. Kathy Bates won Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress, Best Actress for her role in Misery. George C. Scott, most famous for playing the part of General Patton in the film Patton, and many other films as well too. And he's also worked with Chris Owen, who was most famous for playing the Shermanator in the American Pie films. James Vanderbeek, as you see in the trailer there, and the actress from Jurassic Park. I forgot her name, but this was one of her later roles after Jurassic Park, and she was fantastic in the movie too. Like, really, everybody in the movie is phenomenal with their deliveries, with their emotional beats, and the comedy beats as well too. The relationship between George C. Scott playing the grandfather to Angus here. It's a wonderful, wonderful relationship here, including his relationship with his mom, played by Kathy Bates. All three of them working together on that screen. They all have a different set of personalities and how they approach certain things, but yet they mesh so well together. You do believe that these guys have a wonderful and close relationship here, although there are some friction moments here and there, but overall they love each other, and you definitely feel that authenticity there between between the characters here, because apparently in real life it seems like almost everybody got along a great deal, to the point where in the movie you see that Angus and his friend there, played by Chris Owen, they're the best of friends here, but in real life they ended up developing that same type of relationship where they became best friends, and they still are friends to this very day. And he even admits, like, he is my best friend. So it's wonderful to hear these type of stories there, and it translates so well on the screen. And you definitely see a lot of friction in the relationships between all the other characters in there, where they start off in a good spot, and then they're forced into a situation where they have to really confront their insecurities, not just with themselves, but in front of everybody else as well too. And that is pretty much the story of Angus here. And like I said before, the relationship that he has with his family is also a very important factor in the story here. And the fact that you have Charles Talbot playing Angus here, being that it's his very first role with having no acting experience whatsoever prior to making this movie here, you wouldn't have noticed here, because he definitely has a wonderful timing for the comedy in this film here, and also the emotional beats, the dramatic scenes in this movie here. He does a great job, and I remember thinking that when I saw those moments in the film, like I definitely felt very connected. I didn't cry in the movie there, not because because I'm not a tough guy by any means, but I just remember just observing the performance that this guy delivered on the screen there, and I was so amazed like how good he was able to do that, and that's when I really started becoming more aware of what the cadence of what an actor has to be delivering when it comes to these characters that they're portraying here, and how they have to connect well with the other actors. Like, I was starting to become more aware of that at that age, of how that stuff really works. And then along the way, I started becoming more aware of who the writers and the directors were, the actors and actresses and so on. So I was more aware of that sort of stuff here. And as I mentioned before, this guy is working with legendary actors right off the bat here. And George C. Scott, Kathy Bates, Rita Moreno, who won Best Supporting Actress for the film that she did in West Side Story way back in the 60s. And he's also has a scene with Irvin Kershner, who, if you guys don't know who he is the guy that wrote and directed Empire Strikes Back. So there is a little bit of a Star Wars reference here with the cameo appearance of that director in the movie there. And he's also worked with another actress who I forgot what she was in the movie, and this was Anna Thompson here. I got my little notes that I'm looking at here. She was she had a wonderful role in the movie The Crow, where she played Sarah's mother in that movie, and she also had a very small part in the beginning of one of my third favorite movie of all time, in True Romance, with a scene that she had shared with Christian Slater at the bar scene in the beginning of the movie. And she also had a very wonderful part in the movie Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood there. So this lady has worked with some legendary actors and directors in major productions here, and here she is working in this very little known movie. And although she's not in the film very much, but her impact in the movie was instant. Like, I remember feeling, holy shit, like I connected with her too, and she's not in the film for very much here. I mean, again, and even James Vanderbeek, which is one of his first co-starring roles, if I'm not mistaken, here, before he hit it big with Varsity Blues and Dawson's Creek. I mean, he is phenomenal in this movie here. Now, there's definitely a punchline in the movie where he has his nose broken by Angus for a good part of the film. It seems like every 15 or 20 minutes he has his nose broken. And yet when you look at the movie, you can see that perfect nose fitting that very symmetrical face there. For a man who has his nose broken since he was a kid by Angus and several other people throughout the film, he's able to have this perfectly aligned nose on his face there. It seems a little inconsistent, but I mean, again, those are the little minor flaws that I just look way past. I'm like, you know what? The story's so good, I don't give a fuck. So I cannot say enough about this movie. I really, truly do love this film, and there are some flaws here and there with the story, but I'm not going to get into that here because, again, this movie was such a work of art here for me. And the movie is definitely of this decade here because when I was watching the movie, because I hadn't seen that movie, I believe since the late 90s, if I'm not mistaken here. And it's been a long time since I've last seen the film. And I happened to come across it on HBO Max, and I'm thinking, holy shit, Angus. So I put it on, and I was right back where I last left off with this movie, where all the emotions started coming back to me, all the memories I've had from the era, where the music and the just the style of clothing and people with the kids wearing the headset with a cassette player. I mean, and having a radio on that Walkman there, like just those little details that I remember. Like, holy shit, I remember that stuff. And I missed that time, and I certainly missed the idea of having to discover music and discover all other sorts of forms of art, so with television and movies, of course. And looking at that film, I would just remember thinking, like, I remember how to discover bands through friends of mine who had access to records that I just didn't have access to at that time. And I was introduced through music videos, watching MTV when MTV was notorious for showing new artists, and they were doing it on around the clock here, especially in the 90s. And I just remember thinking, like, that's an era that I absolutely love and adored, and it'll never be repeated in that way ever again, because obviously times have changed. So watching that movie, I kept thinking about my childhood at that point and where my mindset was and where I was at my life at that time. Granted, I was a very young kid in elementary school, but I remember just thinking these thoughts about what I enjoyed about the film here and how I was able to evolve from my love for film from watching this movie. Because I remember specifically watching this film, and although I definitely did connect with Angus here, especially when he starts to tear up with the death of his grandfather here, I remember certainly feeling emotional, but I was really impressed with his performance. And that was one of the very first times where I started noticing how actors work very well and how they're able to make these proper deliveries for the characters here in these films and certain scenes here and there. Like I started to learn to appreciate that more and more. And this film certainly was that catalyst for me to look out for that sort of stuff, because before I was just enjoying a film and I loved it, but I didn't really understand to appreciate the little certain nuances when it comes to cinematography, the lighting, and the delivering of lines, and the acting, and the sequences that lead to one event to another here. And having to see those seeing this film here made me appreciate that much more and more here. And when you actually do the research on this movie here, there's a lot of stuff they ended up removing entirely from the plot here, and you wouldn't notice it right off the bat, because again, the way the film is put together here, it really flows into one event to another here. And one of the things they ended up taking out here is that Angus's father was originally supposed to be in the movie, and in the movie he's gay, and he was actually supposed to be played by the actor who played Dr. Giggles. There is it's a B-rated action film. I would say horror movie with the actor that played Dr. Giggles there. So he was going to be playing Angus's father, but in the film the character is gay. So his mom and dad had separated, but yet he still has a great relationship with both his parents here. And at the time, the studio just thought that was way too taboo. They really couldn't delve into that for a subject matter of that sort in a film where it's meant to be appealing to kids and teenagers there. So they ended up removing that entirely there. And there are certain sequences that are supposed to be leading up to the events of Angus meeting up with his father, but you would never notice that because the way that they make those transitions there, it doesn't feel like there's a scene missing. At least to me, I didn't notice that. It all seems to be cohesively put together properly, and the stuff they did add on here was mainly more with George C. Scott playing Angus's grandfather here. They added a little bit more scenes with him to kind of fill in the gap more or less here. But again, you wouldn't have noticed that here because it all seemed pretty flawless here to me. So, like I said before, there are some flaws with the films here, but the flaws are kind of just so forgiving that I didn't really think too much about that, other than Vanderbeek having his nose broken like every 20 minutes here, and they were actually pretty funny when it ever occurred throughout the film. But overall, guys, my thoughts on the film is that I love it. I highly recommend that you all check it out there, and it is currently streaming on HBO Max. So if you have access to watch it on HBO Max, I would highly recommend that you do so here. So my recommendation is that this film certainly deserves a super high cheers there, and I recommend that you all check it out here. And if you have seen the film, let me know what you guys think. Did you see it in theaters? Did you happen to come across the film through television? Let me know how you discovered this movie here if you have seen it. And if you haven't seen it, Check it out and let me know what you think down in the comment sections down below. And while you're here, make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already here, and hit that notification button there too, so that way you are aware of any upcoming videos that we have coming down the pipeline here, and also help us grow our channel to reach to our 1,000 subscribers on this channel here. So be sure to share and like our videos here along the way too. And while you're here, make sure to check out NRW here on our social media accounts here. You can follow them on Facebook and on Instagram simply at New Release Wednesdays, and on Twitter at the NRW. You can follow myself here on my social media accounts on Instagram at Rob_Medina0585, on Twitter Rob Medina0585, and on Facebook simply Rob the Movie Guy here. And that's pretty much it, guys. So thank you very much for watching the video here, and remember to stay safe out there, and remember, cheers.